Ever tried, ever failed? No matter. Try again, fail better. That's a quote by Samuel Beckett, a 19th century Irish writer. And he has some excellent quotes. Check him out. But that's whenever we face imposter syndrome, what we should do is try again, fail better. But if that's not enough, then I promise you by the end of this video, you will be able to overcome imposter syndrome and make it this sort of infinite motivation. And yeah, let's get into the video. Hello, friends. Whether you come from comment sections to emails, recommendation pages, hello. My name is Ryan, the author, and this is The Path and the Pen. Whether it's your first time here or you're a recurring character in this thing I call my narrative, my channel, it's a pleasure to see you all. Can't stress that enough. Let's get into this. And yeah, imposter syndrome. Okay, so imposter syndrome is whenever we have this doubt or, feeling of inadequacy where we don't feel, no matter of our status, whether we're high or low in the fame status of our designated work areas, that we feel inadequate or we don't deserve it, right? We see this with bestsellers, that they feel as if they got into the best-selling position because they're lucky and that their writing also sucks. We see that with the greatest artists of all time as well. It's a common occurrence. And what are the causes for this? Imposter syndrome, it will drive people mad. It's one of the main causes of why people stop writing, stop drawing, stop painting, etc., etc., etc. It's why everyone can quit so many things. And the causes of this are simple, perfectionism, right? We want to be perfect as artists, as writers, even in a craft that is subjectively driven. And that is why we face imposter syndrome, because we are in fields most of the time that are subjectively driven, right? I mean, one person will love one book and the other person will hate it. That's just opinionated field of study, right? And I have to say this is that, we have to realize at some point, this is why it takes sometimes decades for people to write novels, write books, is because of the fact of perfectionism. You use it to a point. You realize that I'm going to have to release this thing at some point, get critiques, make the next one better. It's all about improving, right? Improving with every single word you're writing, and it's just making this thing that, if I'm getting better with every single word, every single paragraph, every single chapter, that is going to compound, right? I mean, it's like whenever you do something so small, but if you just do that over and over again, it adds up. It's like having a job, right? You have a salary, right? And you get that salary, and let's say it is, paid by the hour, right? And you get paid, let's say, 10, okay? You pay 10 an hour. It's not that much, but you work 100 hours. That's $1,000 without taxes, without all that, of course. But you just got to realize that if you improve with every single thing, and you're doing everything in your power, you're working so hard in a sense that there's no reason to complain, because you're reaching the furthest level of perfectionism that you can even reach to most of the time. If you feel like you're still reaching for perfectionism and aren't reaching it, then it's because you do have time on your hands, right? But that's like eating, right? No one's going to be writing while they're eating. No one's going to be writing while they're sleeping. No one's going to be writing if they're at some job or something, part-time, full-time, etc. No one's going to be writing at school during a test, right? No one's going to be doing these things. But if you have some hobbies or whatever, then, you can try time managing. And then you can see, whenever you become, satisfied with your offer of perfectionism, right? But it's not reaching perfectionism. It's getting the closest you can get to it. And you got to realize that and be realistic with yourself. That am I being better with each word, paragraph, chapter, book, novel, novella, right? Every single line, right? Next one is social comparison. Now, as you know, you're watching this on social media. I do updates or whatever, whenever people reaching 10,000, 20,000, 30,000, 40,000 words, right? And I'm over here just editing my novel, just nodding along. But I remember, a big deal of imposter syndrome was looking on social media and seeing, holy, they wrote how many words in a month? How many? 100,000? Right? It's not, you don't compare about stuff about that because comparison is a thief of joy, right? Whenever you compare, it is going to take your joy away and it's going to make your writing even more miserable. So think about social comparisons, about that's where that person is. This is where I'm at. Now, how can I bridge that gap and be better, right? Be better than I am currently. The greatest factor that people count off on is not others. Everyone's always worried about others, but it's about yourself. Because you can always look at social comparisons. You can always blame it on perfectionism, which you can because that's mental, right? It's all mental. Whenever you get something done by yourself, then you're able to reach whole new heights. It's like trying to self-teach yourself something. You're going to learn a whole lot more, and you're going to make a lot more mistakes if you do it yourself. But if someone teaches you, and sometimes whenever you come back to that, it's not going to be fully known. You're going to be like, well, they were here last time, and then when they're not here, boom. Right? That's just an analogy, an example. But you got to realize that you have to change. I thought the quote went, to change things outwardly, you first have to win an inward battle. So you got to realize that you can't be perfect, but you can get to a certain level, but you will never get to that level. You can always try being perfect, but you can't actually grab perfection and keep it, right? And you got to realize that people are going to go on their own things, right? You don't know about if someone who wrote this many words actually got burnt out. And I saw this video, and it's just, don't be proud if you're burnt out. And I mean it to the extreme extent, because they brought up in this video, I forgot who it was, that, basically in a sense, these people were writing books in a day. And they were so proud, they were writing 30,000, 40,000 words novella, right? Writing that in a whole day at these novel camps, etc., etc., etc. And they got proud whenever they burnt themselves out, and they were out for a month. When they didn't probably learn anything because they were just trying to type all day to get this book done, right? Because whenever you compare, you have to put in your circumstances, right? For example, I have a decent amount of stuff on my plate, right? But I still have time to edit videos, all this SAT prep, all this stuff compiling, right? I'm still able to do editing, content creation, and anyone that's like, I can't do that my age, and that's fine. It's because I'm able to do this because I actually quit basketball. I sacrificed one thing. So think about it like this: whenever you have a big test, instead of resting, you stay up till like 2 a.m. practicing. Going over, reviewing the information. You sacrificed your time to get a better reward. It's basically what you would do. I'm not saying sacrifice your time. Sleep is important for a writer, which I'm about to get into. But gosh dang, you got to make sure that if you aren't reaching the levels that you are hoping to get, and you know that there's something that you can sacrifice, but that's fun, then here's some harsh truth. You either deal with it and deal with that, or you sacrifice it, right? Either one is completely fine. I'm not trying to tell you sacrifice this. Like it's something at some altar or something, right? I'm saying pick, right? Because you can't be mad at yourself whenever you already picked to keep this hobby that's fun because it's keeping you sane. You can't get mad at that because you already made your choice. You keep on doing this, but then you're also mad you don't have enough time to do this, and you'll blame it on something you can't change, like school and other things, jobs, right? You'll blame it on that instead, whenever you are wasting time doing something else, like gonna call some people out here, doom scrolling, stuff like that, right? I mean, I of course take advantage of doom scrolling, obviously, as a content creator, kind of just make YouTube shorts. Long form content is slowly fading, but I'm trying to get long form content. Anyway, you just got to realize that, right? You got to realize that you can't be mad at yourself that you don't have enough time to write. And then you realize that without that sacrifice, that you're using all your available time possible on writing, right? And once you realize that, then it's easier to find peace within yourself and get over imposter syndrome. And I basically explained this whole video why imposter syndrome can be a weapon, a fuel of motivation, of discipline. Think about it like this. You're mad at self-doubt, at inadequacy, that you forgot the one important thing. If you do it day in and day out, your craft, you're going to get good at it, where you're still going to be doubting yourself, but don't think about the future. I'm still going to be doubting myself. I'm still going to be terrible. Think about it in a more optimistic mindset. Think about the future. I'm going to be one of the best writers in the world, right? You have to have at least some sort of confidence, because doubt just can be the worst thing ever, but you can turn doubt into self-belief, self-doubt to self-belief so quickly by just thinking to yourself, if this is how bad I am now, then how good am I going to be in a year if I get better with every single word, every single paragraph, every single chapter, every single page, every single line, every single book? How good am I going to be by next year? And if that's not enough, if you've been doing this for, give or take, at least 2 months, 3 months of constant writing, or just 3 months of writing in general, look back at your first work. I mean, that's a great motivation factor for how much I've improved, because it's a huge jump from my first things with, first off, grammar, and second off, just straight up storytelling aspects, because it was my first draft. That was the raw storytelling element. It was absolutely hectic, man. I mean, that I was just staring at my screen. I'm like, yeah, this would be a good plot point. And then draft 2 comes by. I'm like, no, erase that. You can erase this. You can erase that. And yeah, I mean, because you got to realize to improve, test out new things, and that's how you can stay sane in the writer world. But always remember that if you ever need anything, like, just comment down below, right? About, like, literally anything. I talked to people before about, well, no, people have talked to me about personal stuff, professional stuff, kind of like all the categories in a sense, and I would be happy to, talk. I have my email in my channel description. Just stop on by there, and that would be a private conversation. But of course, your choice. But always remember that the greatest foe is always going to be you. I remember watching Creed, the boxing movie, and Rocky, he taps on the mirror, and Adonis looks at himself, right? And Rocky says, "That's your biggest challenger," right? I forgot the exact wording he used for it, but that's your biggest foe. That's your biggest opponent, is yourself. So get to know him a bit more. And, Adonis, he starts doing some jabs or whatever. In the writer world, throwing jabs is writing words down, is self-reflection, whatever. Whatever you do to connect with your inner self, writing shows your inner self, which I've went over. I think that, I mentioned earlier that, causes are social comparison, perfectionism, and, the field is so subjectively driven, right? I mean, it's opinionated, right? That is the writing complex. And, yeah. Basically, what I'm saying is that it's so difficult, and why we can face writer's block. Also, I think I might have said this in previous episodes before, I'm not quite sure. It's just because whenever you write a story, you put your soul out on the page. You pull yourself out, and you put it on that page, and you put it out on the world for all the world to read. And then once you get that one little critique, you just go off. This is why, if you ever get a beta reader, I saw this video, and, you don't explain to the beta reader why, back in, they'll say you didn't explain your magic system well enough, right? You take that into consideration, you say thank you. What you don't do is explain, well, on chapter 2, page 12, I actually went over the entire magic system, and then you realize you only mentioned your magic system and how it implies and how it works, and no, other things only once, right? I mean, that's the problem I'm finding, right? I have to, in my final edit, which I'm almost at, hopefully by the end of the month, I'll be at this final edit. And you just gotta I gotta put more magic stuff in there. I gotta explain my magic system a lot more, because a lot of my beta readers were very confused on the magic system. And, no hate towards them. But, of course, right? I mean, I gotta realize that if everyone's saying this, it might be an issue, right? Because one person can say it. You gotta reread it yourself and be objective with it. Don't be subjective, because subjective, it's like personally for me, people write down their stuffs on notes, right? But I don't write that much stuff on my story about notes. But so I remember most of my story, almost, every single scene I remember in my head, right? And with some people, they write down notes, but they still have an understanding of their story. So that's just a subjective mindset. That's why whenever I think you get done, either whether it's with a draft, I forgot what it was, with the drafts for right before you're about to edit, take around a month break. Why do you take that? You ask, so you can be more objective around it, right? Get your mind off writing. And that's why the beginning of editing was so difficult for me, is because I was writing a different story, I was reading different books, but I was still in that mindset of how can this improve my main project, right? How can this improve my novel? Instead of looking and just enjoying the story, enjoying Red Rising as it is, enjoying the First Law trilogy, enjoying The Hobbit, I saw it as what does this teach me, right? Well, it's a good mindset. It's just whenever you're trying to go from subjective to subjective to objective, it's very difficult to deal with that. And I'm saying all this to just say that, what we said at the beginning, ever tried, ever failed, no matter, try again, fail better, my friend, fail better. If you haven't heard me, fail better. That's what we're so scared of, I feel, as a society, as writers ourselves, in communities, is failing. Failing is the entry point to success. Some people, you think that they just hit it off, but they just didn't fail in one category, right? So let's say someone worked their butt off on a novel, and they published it, they did all this marketing, but they didn't fail with their novel. But how many novels did they write beforehand? Maybe. What did they have to learn about marketing? But if it was their first novel or whatever, think about it like this. They probably, while they're writing the novel, they probably failed a lot on a lot of stuff, a lot of storytelling techniques, a lot of ways of saying your story, a lot of ways to hone in, and nothing was working, and then something just clicked. Then they did the advertising perfect. There was no issues with their advertising. As the quote goes, your book will not sell by itself. That's really good advertising information. Just remember, always be ready to fail. I'm not saying, oh, I'm going to fail. No, that's the wrong mindset. Always be ready for failure just in case it comes, right? So you're prepared for it and you don't get hit like it's some avalanche. Right? You're not going to be so surprised about it if you're not anticipating it, but ready for it. And it's hard to be ready for it while also wanting success. But you don't fail on purpose. You try your hardest, and you'll see if that works. And then you learn some more, and then whenever you try your hardest again, it's better than the last one, right? That's how learning works. And yeah, let's get into the outro. This is around 21 minutes and a half, right? So let's get into the outro. I hope this wasn't too long. I try making these very concise. I go off on tangents. Shout out to one of my friends. Hopefully they're doing well, tangent gal. But yeah, if you enjoy this, please comment down below. I respond to every single comment. I try my best to make a community here, and if you want to stay, then by all means stay. I'm going to make sure that you get the best writing advice. So if you have a question about writing anything, please ask below. And I don't need your view or whatever. I don't need your subscription. I don't need your like. I don't need your comments. But if you comment down below with a question on writing, I will make sure that you figure out at least as much as I can give you. And that's going to be a heck of a lot better than you not asking for any help. So don't be shy. I'm always here. Hello. I'm going to respond probably within 24 hours, or I would say 12. I don't know. Time scheduling is getting really off of hand, so it's hard to reply to comments like 2 minutes after 2 to 10 minutes after they already sent one. But I'll let y'all go. My name is Ronnie Author. This is the Pat in the Pen. Thank y'all very much, and y'all have a blessed day. Bye.